Hey guys, it's Queen Set Haru, and thank you for joining me for another wonderful edition of Ask an Aquarius. If you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button and smack the bell. Okay, so someone asked me, how does Saturn retrograde affect Aquarius? So first and foremost, let's talk about what Saturn retrograde is. All of the planets that are observable from the Earth go through a period of what is called a retro period. A retro period is a period where from Earth it appears that the planet is going backwards, that is orbiting backwards. So our astronomers have been noting this happening with the planets for thousands of years. So they've named this phenomena retrograde. So every planet, Saturn, Mercury, Uranus, all of them go in a retrograde period. Some of them are longer than others. For example, when Mercury goes retrograde, it's for about 3 weeks, maybe a month, depending upon how long the shadow periods are. But when Saturn goes retrograde, it's retrograde for 3 months. When Uranus goes retrograde, it's retrograde for like 5 months. So they all go retrograde for different amounts of time, but according to the astronomers, it happens with them every year, sometimes more than once a year. So someone, when they asked me about Saturn, Saturn just went retrograde. So Saturn went retrograde, it says here, between April 29th and April 30th. And it will go direct, come out of retrograde on September the 18th. Okay? So you might be more familiar with Mercury retrograde, because when that happens, it causes havoc, So a lot of people, even people who aren't into spirituality, know about Mercury retrograde because things have gone wrong for a lot of us during that time. So the good news is that Saturn is a further away planet. The planets that are closer to the Earth, according to astrologers, have the strongest influence on us. So Saturn is much further away than Mercury. So the effect is not going to be the same. It says that the closer planets have more immediate effects. So during Saturn's retrograde, it's going to be more of a long-term effect, it says here. It said it affects us over time. So Mercury's retrograde, will get the effects of that immediately. Something happens, like for instance, during Mercury's retrograde, a lot of times things break. So during the retrograde, a lot of us lose things like computers, hot water heaters, cars. Things go wrong, things break, especially things that were already not doing that good anyway, have a tendency to go during Mercury retrograde. But because Saturn's retrograde is one of the outer planets and it affects us more over time, it's not an immediate thing. It's usually a slow progression, usually a slow buildup of some kind, even something that may have started to build up before the retrograde. So that's the thing about this. So now that we know what a retrograde is, let's talk about Saturn. How does Saturn affect Aquarius? Saturn is our co-ruling planet. We have 2 planets, Uranus and Saturn. Uranus is the fun, unpredictable, wild planet. Wild card planet, I call it. And I like Uranus because if we didn't have Uranus, we would be basically Capricorns. Because Capricorns are also ruled by Saturn. So Aquarius, our fun side, our spontaneous, rebellious side, comes from Uranus. So what comes from Saturn then? Well, Saturn is actually good for us, even though I buck against it. Saturn is good for us because Saturn brings us, it says here, the wise, responsible, disciplined nature. And as an Aquarius, you and I both know we have to be very self-disciplined. Nobody can control an Aquarius, but we can control ourselves. And that ability comes from Saturn. If it wasn't for Saturn, we'd probably be a lot wilder. If you can imagine any wilder, right? So those of us who are wild would be even wilder if there was no Saturn energy. So it's very helpful to us. But other people, and sometimes Aquarius, can see Saturn's energy as serious, cold, harsh, detached. So some of that nature that people sometimes attribute to Aquarius definitely comes from Saturn. And some of the times Capricorn get accused of that same energy coming from Saturn. Saturn is also in charge of like order and groups and like political structures and things like that. So that's what it does normally. So what happens when it goes retrograde? When a planet goes retrograde, the things that it usually does flip. So if it's usually keeping order, if it's usually keeping groups, together and harmonious, if it's usually keeping political structures, then when it goes retrograde, those things become a problem. Those things don't go smoothly anymore. So basically, as an Aquarius, that's a time period when we don't have our harsh, disciplined ruler at its strength. Uranus is pretty much ruling us. So when Saturn is retrograde, a lot of that stuff goes haywire. So a lot of Aquarius during this time find themselves to be at their most rebellious, at their most wild, at their most, because they don't have old man Saturn with the wrinkled up face making us act right. So according to the book that I got, this is a Solitary Witch. I looked up the retrograde to see a little bit of explanation about it. And it says here that rules that previously worked well will start to fail for some. And like I said, this can be over time. It might not be bam all at one time. It says that political and hierarchical individuals are ousted. So you might see some more. We've already been seeing political unrest. So you might see more of that political unrest across the globe. It's been political unrest everywhere. Like, for instance, Venezuela, the United States, so you might see a lot more of that. Group structures change, bend or break. Those in authority turn a deaf ear. So authority may be not paying attention to what's going on. Rewards either do not manifest as you expected, or are delayed, or don't come to fruition at all. So that's going to be one we're going to look out for. Requires you to face reality. Issues of abuse are often discovered, whether in the home, at work, or in other types of group formations. So this could be a very, what I would call, lawless time. Sounds like a lot of stuff going wrong during this time. So as an Aquarius, how does this affect us? Well, this is our ruling planet, so many of us will probably feel effects from this. 9 times out of 10, many of us will have some kind of something go on that affects us in our lives. When your ruling planet is retrograde, it has a tendency to affect you. It affects everybody, first of all. But when it's your planet, sometimes it might affect you more so than another person. So this is our planet. So we can expect all these things could be problematic for us. And like I said, some of them will have begun already and just be getting progressively worse, you see. So during this time, because of that, I was like, okay, so what can we do about this energy? And again, this book says that we can work on banishing bad habits. This is a good time to get away habits, and habits have become structures in our lives. And if they're bad structures, this is a great time to break them and get rid of them. So that's the first one. Bad habits is a good time to break negative associations. So if you're associated with groups or family members or, people who are not good, this is a great time to escape them. Any negative fears, it says, any negative friends, organizations, any of those things. Work on anything we want to change in the structure of our life. So this is a good time for that. It also says that household chores, so restructuring the mundane household chores that you might have to do. And that's it. And using our time more favorably. So basically, it's all about the structures in our life. This is a great time to fix them, to rework them, to get rid of things, you know, to break the smoking habits you might have. For me, it's going to be getting back to the gym, because I've been saying that, and I'm like, ooh, this is a perfect time for that. Saturn just went retrograde, perfect time to get back to the gym. So for any of us, that's what we can use this energy for. And then, like I said, it's going to be really strong for us. So we might as well use it to our advantage, since it's going to be here for three months altogether. I think they said September the 18th it was when it's going to go direct again. So you have until September the 18th to fix some of those structural things that are going on in your life. And so the ones that are going on a larger level, like they said, the political level and things like that, we're going to have to look out for that and see how that affects. But some of that stuff, like I said, has been going on anyway. So that is how Saturn's retrograde affects Aquarius. And of course, it will also affect Capricorn the same way that it affects Aquarius over time. All right, guys, thank you for that question. I hope that helps. So those of you who are Aquarius, now we know how we can use this to our benefit, so let's go for it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you know somebody who's Aquarius or Capricorn who can use this information, please pass it on to them. Or somebody who's wondering about this retrograde, please pass it on to them. If you would like to get a tarot reading, please email me for an appointment. If you'd like to send me a love donation, I'll leave my PayPal. If you'd like to send me a gift, I will leave my Amazon wish list. And as always, please come back, because I have a lot more to say. See you later.